I was going to share this story before and then just touch on it, but I didn't get to tell it, so I will tell you the whole story now. I have this little girl pointing because there's this great experience that I just recently heard about where, let me back up. We direct a coalition of a lot of different leaders in the movement from various perspectives. And last year we had a summit bringing them all together to try to help facilitate networking and train them more and help them see how all forms of exploitation are connected. As part of that, we had Kristen Jensen, who wrote Good Pictures, Bad Pictures at the summit, and she talked a little bit about this. She talked today as well, and they have a booth out there. But she talked about this great book that she wrote that you can read with young kids to help them understand what pornography is and start talking about healthy intimacy with them. There was a Catholic priest who was there also, who's done a ton of things in the Catholic Church, but really brought a lot of things together in the Midwest, specifically in Nebraska. On top of the many things that he does on kind of the state level activist-wise, he also has a couple of recovery groups that he hosts. He helps those who are struggling, but he also has some groups for spouses. And he recommends to them, after he found out about this book, that they should read this book with their children. And so some of the mothers did that. And one mom was at a grocery store with her daughter. This teaches kids to point out pornography, to name it, to label it, and to turn away from it. And it gives them ideas for, and equips them to know how to, block it out or change their thoughts, stuff like that. But this little girl was 5 years old, and they were at a grocery store in Nebraska. She saw Cosmopolitan magazine, and she said, "Mom, isn't that pornography?" And the mom, stunned, realized that she had to do something about it because she had just talked to her little girl about all of this. And so she explained that, it was pretty inappropriate, and it's the kind of material that they were talking about. And the little girl said, "Well, what should we should do something." So the mom had to go. She went to the store manager, and she talked to the store manager about how damaging this kind of material is on young kids especially, and how it's really unfortunate that it's at eye level, it's right at the checkout, etc. And she didn't really think it would go much farther, but then a couple weeks later she got a call from the vice president. So this is the Hy-Vee grocery chain, and it was in Nebraska. And she got a call from the regional vice president who said, "Ma'am, we're sorry, we're going to move those and we're going to cover them." And I mean, how incredible is that to change it? What I'm trying to convey to you is that there's so many different ways to be involved. There is from talking to your kids to activism to speaking out publicly to just filing little complaints. There's so many little things that you can do, and you don't really see the big picture always, but it really is all connected, and it takes all of us really working together. I'm really grateful that we had this conference bringing together the leaders so that they all knew about each other. Father Kilcawley had no idea about this resource before the summit where we were able to bring them together. So my goal for the next hour or so is to help equip you and give you ideas for what you can do personally to help strengthen the movement against pornography and sexual exploitation. But first, for me, as I came to understand what pornography is and a lot of the harms related to it, that's really what makes me feel more passionate about speaking up. And so I'm just going to take a few minutes. You all might know a lot of this already. Some of the other speakers might have already commented on it, but I want to just go through what pornography today really is all about. We're talking about the depiction of erotic behavior intended to cause sexual excitement. That could be visual, it could be videos, it could be pictures, it could be written material like books or magazines as well. And today, mainstream pornography, it's not what you think of when you think of Playboy, maybe your father's Playboy in the 1960s. It's not like that anymore. It's very deviant. It's much more violent. It's not just topless women anymore. That's not what we're talking about. In fact, if you're looking for pornography online, it actually is harder to find pictures of just topless women these days than it is to find hardcore pornography. That the hardcore stuff is what is everywhere now. It's available. It's everywhere now. I mean, it's in your pocket with your smartphone device. It's anonymous. Nobody has to know that you're going down to the corner store and buying that magazine. And so that means a lot more people are feeling like they can consume this material. And today it's very affordable. A lot of it is just free. And pornographers' tactics have evolved. They're very smart. They know how to get you hooked, from the pop-ups to showing you softer images and getting you hooked with, you're curious, you want to know more, to kind of, I think, I would argue that the pornographers, the sex industry is very real, and they're very organized, and they're very smart, and their tactics are just very different, and it's hard to even know really that they're targeting you sometimes. And so it's harder to make the decision to stay away from it at times. The harms include the fact, I'm out of breath because I'm talking fast, that men, women, and children are now developing lifelong addictions to this stuff. A lot of people think it's just a man's problem. It's definitely not. More and more women are struggling with it. Last week there was a survey that came out of Wales, so it might not be exactly the same in the United States, but I bet it's not that far off. But 1/10 of the kids surveyed, 12 to 13-year-olds, said that they were worried that they have an addiction to pornography. They were self-identifying themselves as having a problem, a compulsive issue with using pornography. These are 12 to 13-year-olds. And this is a very real problem. It definitely works to destroy families. Early exposure, especially when children, affects their psychological development, their physical and social development as well. It exploits women and children, particularly women. Adult or hardcore pornography today is very violent and degrading, very much towards women, and those attitudes are seeping through our society, into our society in all ways, which I can't believe that we're allowing that today, right? After the women's movement, we fought so hard for equality and to be seen as people and not objects, but then like 50 Shades of Grey completely takes over, our media. These are messages straight from pornography. We know that performers in pornography are often forced and coerced against their will. I've talked to so many, to dozens of women who have participated in the production of pornography, and some are still in it, some are out. But all of them that I've talked to come from broken backgrounds. They have been abused. They feel like they have no other options. They feel like this is going to be a glamorous life where it's going to make them famous. They're going to have everything that they want, only to find out that that's very much not the case, and they usually don't have any control over what's happening to them in the production of pornography. Pornography is increasing the demand for child pornography, for trafficked women and children, for prostitution, and there's increased sexual dysfunction. This morning I had the news on, and there was an ad for Viagra. I mean, and it was saying in the ad that so many men struggle with this, and it's not rare. But that's true. So many men are struggling with erectile dysfunction these days. Many men who are in their 20s and 30s, and it's because of pornography. There are 3 studies that came out in 2011, all are 3 different countries, all pointing to the fact that there's pornography-induced erectile dysfunction. And we're only going to see that continue to rise. Imagine how that affects the marriage or your intimate relationships with your wife. So this is a very real problem. In order to understand, a lot of people think I'm jumping to conclusions when I say that pornography leads to increased demand for trafficking or for child abuse images. But maybe if you understand the brain science, you will understand why I'm making those statements too. A lot of people who have struggled with drug addictions and with pornography addiction have come out and said that pornography addiction was much harder to overcome. A lot of the research that is out there, it's a little sparse in the addiction realm, and there's an argument whether or not this is truly an addiction or not. But those who really help those who struggle with the compulsive disorders or with addictions say that pornography is much harder to overcome than even cocaine or alcoholism, because you can't get it out of your system, you can't get it out of your brain. Those images can come back at an instant. Triggers are all over the place. And they found that it often follows the same neural pathways as a cocaine addict addiction does, or alcoholism does. And so it has a very similar effect on the brain. One thing that I find this so fascinating, I'm not a neuroscience, but I read a lot of this stuff, and I've been able to talk with a lot of experts on the brain. But one thing that's amazing about our bodies is when we're getting ready to engage in a intimate relationship with someone else, chemicals are released in our brain, and these help us to feel really connected with the other person. It gets you ready for the exciting moment that you're about to have, helps you focus on the good things about them, the physical attributes that you find attractive. It helps you form a bond and increases trust with one another. That's really great when it's with your husband or your wife, right? Like, our bodies are naturally set up to build this connection with one another. With pornography, dopamine, norepinephrine, these things are released as well, but instead of bonding with another human being, you're bonding with images. And there's a flood of these chemicals that come into your brain with pornography too. But your brain can't make sense of the fact that this isn't a real person, and this isn't, so your brain starts to bond, and you start to become turned on by those images, and you can't get enough. It's like this adrenaline rush that you have. This is why a lot of times people who are watching pornography can spend hours and hours and hours looking at it, and they just keep clicking that button. It's because that drive and that desire physically in your brain is not turning off. The thing with intimacy, though, is after you've engaged in a sexual act with your husband or your wife, other chemicals are released that help you feel really satisfied, right? You that trust, your memory, you've just cemented a beautiful memory. It helps you with the bonding. It helps you trust one another. It's really a beautiful thing, but the key thing is that you feel satisfied. You don't want to keep having sex over and over and over again. And you're happy being with one another, and all those other emotions are able to come into play. With pornography, very little of these of serotonin and oxytocin are released, and so that leads you to try to find that rush again that you just had, which again is why you can spend hours and hours looking, or why you're drawn back to it, because you only get a momentary sense of satisfaction instead of that complete sense. And this is why a lot of times people deviate. They become bored with the same images, and so they look for harder materials or different types of images online, and the internet has thousands and thousands of things you can choose, different types you can choose from. And some people will deviate to child-themed pornography. It's not hard, because today, mainstream pornography, the number one search term in 2014 for pornography was teen. The number two was teen-related. I mean, people now, even if it's adults in the pornography, they're made to look very young. And so that's cultivating a desire for younger and younger types of images. That's why today child pornography, it's not that we have more pedophiles today than we've had before. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that we're creating a demand for child pornography, because people's brains are not able to, it's not enough for the topless woman anymore. They have to move to harder materials. And a lot of the material that pornographers are giving us are child-themed. A lot of people want to act out what they're viewing in pornography. Again, it has to do with what it does to your brain. And wives and girlfriends, they don't want to do the degrading acts in pornography, so they easily go to a prostituted woman, to a trafficked woman, to children who are very vulnerable and just easy to access. And so we're seeing overwhelming problem of sex trafficking in our country right now, and around the world, and of prostitution. The beautiful thing about our bodies, though, are that our brains, they do change. They change with time. I always say my little sister is 12, my youngest sister, and she was telling me about a boy she has a crush on, and he's like 13, and she's so excited about it, and I was kind of laughing, like remembering when I was in middle school and I had all these crushes on the boys, right? But I don't like 13-year-old boys anymore, right? I'm very attracted to my husband, who's 35. and the thing is that my body changed. As I grew older, my brain changed and developed. That's what happens naturally. look at this. These are some grandparents of some friends of mine. This is from a couple years ago. But he was 104 and she was 101. And they still found each other attractive because our brains are meant to do that. It changes with time. And we're able to have a strong relationship with our spouse. And that's how it's supposed to be. But when we disrupt that with pornography or other types of sexual encounters, it's hard to have this kind of relationship. It disrupts that bond that we're naturally supposed to have with one another. But also because our brains are plastic, when we develop an addiction, it is possible to overcome it. It is possible to undo those changes to your brain that did occur. And so I just want to know that there's hope too, and it's definitely possible to overcome. It's hard work and it's a lot of effort that you have to put into it, but it is possible. So, does anybody have questions about kind of the general harms of pornography? Because I'm going to move into the activism part. No? Okay. I'm not going to spend that much time here, but pornographers, they're very clever. They have a lot of ways to target us and get us involved in pornography. And once you, especially children, they're very good at targeting kids. Just an example, I got a call from a mom, this is about 2 years ago now, who was with her daughter who loves American Girl dolls. You all know what those are. And they decided the little girl wanted to play an American Girl doll game on the computer. So they decided to go to the computer and they just typed in American Girl doll games, like trying to see what came up. And up popped a lot of child and teen themed pornography. The little girl was sitting on the mom's lap. I think that they were actually from here in Utah. But, I mean, the mom had no idea that this would pop up. It was such an innocent search, something that lots and lots of kids are probably little girls are typing into the internet because they love American Girl dolls. But it was full of pornography. The whole first page of Google search was just all porn. But luckily, we were able to call the American Girl doll company, and we alerted them to this problem. And within days, it was fixed. They spent a lot of money to make sure that their SEO was increased and their websites were showing up further. But I mean, the pornographers are so smart, and they know how to get you. They know what kinds of things your kids are gonna be typing in to the internet. But we can be smart too. We have a lot on our side. There's a lot of things that you can do in your home and in your community and on a national level to help oppose them and stop this kind of flood of indecency and pornography that's now overwhelming our society. So I just want to share some of those. Before you can become really an activist in any area of this, you need to make sure that you're protected. And really, you should work on protecting your family. That's number one. Make sure that you aren't susceptible to this stuff, that you've put up safeguards and protected yourself, prepared yourself for this kind of thing. I would tell you, never search out pornography. I get calls from people who, like on social media sites, they're like, well, I just go on there so I can report it all so that YouTube or Facebook will remove it. I say, definitely don't do that. Don't go looking for this stuff, even if you think that you're trying to help in the long run. That's not the answer. You need to really make sure that you're protecting yourself if you want to be an activist in this area. Develop good family traditions. I don't know how many of you heard Kristen Jensen or Dina Alexander's presentations, but in order to create an environment where your kids and your husband, your wife, where all of you feel comfortable talking about these issues, you need to have a good family environment, spend time together, eat dinner together, all those things. It all helps to prevent this stuff from seeping into your family. Use the tools available. There are so many filters out there now. Most of them are very good. They're keeping up with technology. Some of our systems have built-in filters. Those are not perfect. So if you turn them on, which I tell you should turn them on, you can't trust that everything is just fine then. But like the Apple, the Android systems, they have built-in family controls. YouTube has a built-in safe search feature, and now they have a great app for kids. So use those tools that are out there for you. But don't believe that then you're completely safe from this stuff. So have frequent discussions with your children, with your spouse. that's really important, I think, especially with your spouse. We just trust that we're all fine and safe. This stuff is coming at us from every angle. I'll tell you, I mean, I'm finding pornography all the time, and I hear my husband speak about this stuff sometimes, and he's probably even more passionate about me, and I'm really proud and excited and happy about that. But we still need to talk about it, right? And what one another is exposed to, and how we're doing, and how we react. Last summer, I asked my husband, so when's the last time? Here's the other thing. Don't ask, do you have a problem with pornography? Do you look at pornography? That puts you immediately on the defensive. Instead, ask something like, when's the last time you saw it? Because the chances are that all of you have been exposed to it, and you want to just be able to talk about that experience and what happened as a result. But so I asked my husband, he was in an MBA program at the time, and I said, so when's the last time that you saw pornography? We have to have our little talk. And he said, actually, it was today. And I was getting a little nervous. But I asked him about what happened, and as he told me, he was in class, and is a program with the Army, actually. And one of the videos that they were showing in class had a very explicit sex scene. And so I was pleased to find out that my husband, he walked out of the room, and he'd already sent a letter to the dean and to his professor kind of complaining about it. But and he met with them later. It was so incredible for our relationship and our marriage to just have that conversation. And to have it out in the open, even for me to be able to trust him more, or just, it's really important to have these conversations together. We need to get educated and stay up to date. You're all here, so you're all trying to do that, which is really great. There are a lot of resources now. The research is overwhelming. 20 years ago, there was very little research. Now we know that it's leading to addictions and all of these other struggles. It affects children, all of these things. So there's a lot that will empower you as you're trying to help convince other people that this is a problem that they should be aware of. You need to know the facts, too. Use technology wisely, and definitely you should know what your kids are doing. But you can speak up, too, and I've got a few different ways. Sometimes I'm terrified to speak up in public. It's so scary. And I've messed up, and I've been rejected, and I've been made fun of. But then I've also gotten a lot of responses of people who are willing to make a change and to do something. And it's scary, but you can speak up, and you can make a difference. You never know who's watching. Before I really got involved in fighting pornography and speaking about all of this, it was in my mind that I should get involved in this issue, but I didn't know how to or what I could do. But I was at Barnes & Noble, and I was there, working on my computer in the cafe or something, and I decided to take a break, and I was just meandering around looking at stuff, and I saw a whole bunch of books that were on, the second shelf down. It was all porn. It was all nudity on the covers. And I couldn't believe it. It was on the second shelf down, which means that's not really for... And to the side was magazines, and to the other side was all the kids' stuff, all the kids' books, right next to this aisle. I mean, who can see the second aisle down? I could barely see it, but kids can all see that. And I remember I went up, I was so terrified and nervous, but I was really mad also. So I went to talk to the manager, and he completely made fun of me, and it was horrifying, right? I felt so stupid, and I felt really dumb for saying anything. He made me feel like, this is totally normal, what's wrong with you? But as I was kind of making a stink about it, I noticed that two women came up and they were listening. And as I walked away, I was so rattled, but they thanked me for saying something. They both actually had kids with them. And it was so exciting to see that it didn't change that store manager's mind, and he didn't move them, but to see that it affected these other parents too. So I'm just saying, sometimes they don't really listen. And other times, one time there was a cosmopolitan at the dentist, and it was a kid's dentist that I was at with my little sister, and so I just mentioned it to the dentist, and he removed them. He was like, oh, you're right, it's probably not good to have in the pediatric dentist office. So he moved us. Sometimes they make fun of us and say no, and other times they're willing to make a change, and it just takes asking, really. 50 Shades of Grey, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I'm just using this as an example. This was a complete media sensation. It was everywhere. It was on every TV channel. They were advertising it. It was on the radio. Seemed to be everywhere. Like at Target, I saw advertisements or like toys you could buy that were 50 Shades themed next to the kids' toothbrushes. Like it was everywhere, right? You guys remember this. That was the perfect opportunity for you to speak up and say something to your neighbors, to your friends, in response to posts on your social media about the harms of pornography and this kind of content on society. I mean, what I'm trying to say is you should use current events and cultural things that are happening as an opportunity to speak up about these things. It's the perfect kind of board for you to jump off of to have a voice. So a couple of projects that we have, let me see what time it is. It's actually against federal law to distribute hardcore pornography, or obscenity is the legal term, on the internet, on cable, satellite TV, and hotels, motels, and in retail shops. A lot of people don't realize that these laws are there because it's in all of those places. One of our big efforts is to try to get these laws enforced again. So one reason why we moved our office from New York to Washington, D.C., and we're working with Congress all the time. Loretta Lynch is the new Attorney General who's likely to be nominated soon, and we've been meeting with them, and I don't know that it will go anywhere, but we're not giving up. We want these laws enforced. There's a lot you can do to help us because your members of Congress need to hear from you. And your members are helping us a lot, Hatch and Lee, and so if they can see that you're happy that they're helping, it will continue to help us in Washington in this way. But you can just call, you can send a letter, you can send an email. No one even has to really know that you're involved in this. We have the Dirty Dozen list. We pick 12 targets each year. It's not that these are the worst of the worst, but because there are so many that are involved with facilitating sexual exploitation. But we pick 12 each year, and we've set up a whole website for you. If you go to dirtydozenlist.com, you can send emails and letters, and everything is right there. All of the ways that they're involved with pornography or with sexual exploitation, we've laid out the proof for you, the talking points, and things that you can do. Like there's at least 3 actions probably for each of the targets that the public can take. And we've had so much success with this. We started it 3 years ago. We got Google to take out pornography and Google Play and ads. We got Verizon to stop selling child-themed pornography. Hilton Hotels, did you all hear me earlier? They called us on Wednesday and they want to meet in a week, their executives. American Apparel, we've been kind of going after them, not so officially as the Dirty Dozen list for about a year, but we would argue that they were really one of the worst advertisers in retail, and I don't know if you've all seen it. They're still kind of risky, but they completely changed their CEO, their board. They fired their creative director about a month ago because they are no longer going to show nudity or sex acts in their advertising. It's still edgy. So I'm not quite happy yet with them, but they don't belong on the Dirty Dozen list anymore for sure. So there's a lot of actions you take. We have set up pornharmsaction.com. There are more than 75 actions you can take, and these are just from your home quietly. You just sign a petition. You can make a call. There's Twitter campaigns you can join, and all of these things really help the bigger movement. So if you're a little shy and you're not ready to go out and yell at the world publicly that you're upset with this stuff, you can just do this from your home and it will only take you a couple of minutes. We have a project to try to get library filters in libraries and schools. And in Utah, you used to be the best. You're not the best anymore. Things are changing, and your state policy is becoming a little weaker. So there's some work you can do here. And some of your library districts have found loopholes around having filters on their libraries. So we need you to help close that. Go to your library, go to the board meetings, and almost always it just takes speaking up. Like you get 2 minutes at the board meeting to say, we really want filters here. Usually they comply. In a few instances, it's become like this drawn-out bloodbath. But this project itself is pretty easy, but we can't do it from Washington. We can't go to your local library and ask them to put filters on. They don't care what we want. You have to go yourself, and you need to go and make sure that your schools. I've heard in Utah recently that they're distributing devices to children, like laptops or iPads or something. They're assigning them to kids so they have their own device. But these devices don't have filters on them, and they're just sending them home. And parents themselves don't really understand the dangers. And so you can go to your school and see if this is happening. You can remind the school leaders that these really need to be filtered, and that the parents need to be educated on what some of the dangers are, and even told that their kid has an iPad that they're bringing home. If you go to safeschools.safelibraries.com, we have a whole getting started packet. It's easy. We'll hold your hand the whole time if you want to be a community leader in this way. If you want to set up a citywide blitz there, you wouldn't really need us to help you with this, because you've got the Utah Coalition Against Pornography and lots of groups here. But we've seen that setting up billboards and having like a night at church or an interfaith event where you talk about these issues. It really just takes individuals to organize it and get it off the ground. We'll help facilitate it. We can provide a lot of the harder administrative type work, but it takes local leaders to do that. Fight the New Drug is right here in Utah. They can go to your schools and give presentations. Maybe they've been in some of them, but they can't really go to every school and ask to be let in to talk about these things. You have to go to your school and request that they come present. And so you have these great resources right here. We're launching a project against Cosmopolitan magazine. Again, this is somewhat simple and easy, but I've got like flyers you can just print from our website and just set in front of the Cosmo magazines, or you can just hand it to the managers, things like that. Cosmo is not the only one. Sports Illustrated, I don't know if you've all seen the swimsuit edition this year, but it's very provocative and very explicit. But all of these things, speaking up to your store managers and letting them know. If they hear from like 4 or 5 people, that projects in their numbers to like being a lot of people who are upset. So they are willing to change, often with just hearing from a couple of people. And that's what I encourage you to do, is speak up. We have the Coalition to End Sexual Exploitation. I can't breathe. My lungs, I think, just got squished. But you're all welcome to come. I think you're in this room, this presentation particularly, because you want to be an activist. You want to have a bigger role in this movement and fight. And so we're trying to equip those people who feel called to do more personally. And so we've set up, we're hosting a coalition conference in Orlando in September. It's not really open to the public, but it's open for those of you who want to be more involved, who want to be involved with an organization or maybe start one, or just spend a lot more time fighting this. We want you to come because we've got all of the top leaders coming together. They'll train you, they'll help equip you, you'll meet a lot of other leaders too. And so if you can come and you're interested, you should come. It's very different than the UCAP conference. So, do you guys have any questions about other things you can do? Yep.
I have 2 questions. One, you listed the Department of Justice on Dirty Dozen. Would you talk about that? And secondly, could you talk about how the coalition is working with feminist groups that are how you've done that?
Sure. So he asked about why the Department of Justice is on our Dirty Dozen list, and I would say I briefly touched on the federal laws that are in place that prohibit the distribution of obscenity or hardcore pornography. The Justice Department is responsible for enforcing those laws, and they're not enforcing those laws now. They actually disbanded the task force responsible for enforcing those laws just after Obama came into office, and they've blatantly lied. Senator Hatch actually asked him. He's helped us a lot. He got 52 senators to sign a letter, Democrats and Republicans, demanding that our Attorney General enforce the laws. And he came before Congress and blatantly lied about what they were doing. And it's just kind of a mess. So we're working harder. That's why DOJ is on the Dirty Dozen list. One example might be that to help you understand the effectiveness of these laws is in hotels and motels, there's really only one provider of hardcore pornography, 2 hotels and motels. It's a company called LodgeNet. They're based in North Dakota. And if the DOJ would prosecute that one company, it would wipe out pornography in all the hotels and motels around the country. But the DOJ refuses to enforce these laws. And the reason why they're not enforcing those, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you that when they are enforcing these laws, they win almost every time. One case was left over from the Bush administration that was just settled in Los Angeles last year. The pornographer was convicted. He's in jail right now for 4 or 5 years, and he had to forfeit millions of dollars in assets to the government. So also, people think that the government doesn't have money or time. They're focusing on other things, the Justice Department. But enforcing the obscenity laws brings in tons of revenue for them. So that's not even a good excuse. We're working in Washington to try to lay the foundation for the next administration, whoever it's going to be. We work a lot with Congress. We've been trying to get bipartisan support. And so, yeah, hopefully it changes soon, but I'm not sure. And then your other question was about the coalition. The coalition that we direct is very unique. It's been able to bring together the radical feminists, more liberal leaders, together with the religious conservative, social conservative leaders, which is crazy that they're willing to come and even sit at the table together. But on these issues they are, because they see that this is a problem against women. This is a women's issue in large part. It is leading to so many problems that we all care about. It's not a partisan issue. And so, yeah, that should encourage you too to speak up because you have allies that you probably wouldn't even realize that you have. And you're really not alone. But come on, you guys have questions? Do you have examples of things happening in your area?
Would there be some sort of a private or civil suit that we could take action with against that? What did you call that group in Dakota?
LodgeNet? Lodge.
LodgeNet. Mm-hmm. Is that a possibility?
Yes, so we are launching a law center, actually. We've been getting all the attorneys in order. We have incredible First Amendment attorneys who are going to do a lot of pro bono work. I think we'll announce it more publicly later this year. We're looking now for a director for the law center. But the goal of which will be to bring innovative lawsuits against companies or others who are involved in furthering exploitation. And I think we can have a lot of success. I don't know specifically about LodgeNet. The thing with, I don't know if any of you were in earlier when they were talking about the laws, it is difficult on a state level to enforce the state obscenity laws. It's really much easier on a federal level for a variety of reasons. But they just have more money, they have more resources on the federal level, and the federal laws are often more stronger than the state laws. But yeah, we do need some more innovative legal efforts.
So I have an intriguing question on that same point. We always hear statistics of how much is being consumed on a daily basis, or how much is being produced, how much money is made. I'd be curious to really look at, if you even know some information on what percentage of the average American is actually using this, because it's a very minority field. Because if there's so many majority individuals who are all against this and all oppose this, what kind of numbers are actually participating in encouraging this behavior? Because if there wasn't users, then there wouldn't be producers.
You're exactly right. So we want to curb demand, right? If there wasn't demand for this stuff, there wouldn't be a supply. And that got really loud, I think. Is it loud to you? Yelling in my ear. Did you all hear his question? He's looking for a statistic kind of to see how many Americans are using pornography. And I couldn't really tell you. I don't remember off the top of my head. I bet it's a majority of people are using. I don't think it's a minority.
No, the most recent published material that I saw. The most recent published material I saw was 4 out of 5 men and 1 out of 3 women.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty high trend that I've seen in the research.
Like actively? That's like an active.
Like within a month. It's
Yeah.
that study is that they sought it out within the last month. And they sought it out themselves, not that they were exposed to it.
And that's self-reported, so you take that for what it's worth. One
Yep.
out of 3 women and 4 out of 5 men.
And it's important to realize with addicts a lot of the time too, they'll say, oh, I've only used twice this week. Well, that probably means 4 or 5 times. If they say, once a week, we're probably looking at 2 or 3 times. There's a huge problem with underreporting.
There's a lot of underreporting. That's one of the problems that, there is a lot more research today than there ever was before, but it is hard to keep track of this stuff because, one, we can't really expose people to hardcore pornography. That wouldn't be a good study. And number 2, there is a lot of underreporting. There still is a lot of shame and stuff associated with this, and they don't want to admit that they're looking at it. Come on, what are you guys doing in your community? Have any of you spoken up?
I actually just have kind of a question. So, obviously you've got billboards for hey, I've been so many days without smoking, right? Or drinking, or things like that. How is it that we can get in our area, I guess, porn being a normal thing? We obviously see if 4 out of 5 men and 1 out of 3 women are looking at it on a monthly basis, that's, in my mind, that's everything.
Yeah.
Okay, that's completely normal. So let's get it out there and do it. So how can we do that? How can we get it out here right now? I've got on my way home every single day from work, I have to drive past 3 billboards of breast surgery or blue boutique crap, or you know what I'm saying? I understand advertisement. I'm a business guy. I understand that. But you don't have to show for everyone in the world to see that, especially when it's something that degree.
So you're upset. What can you do, right? Have you called those billboard companies and complained?
I haven't. I didn't know that I could.
You
I
can.
didn't do anything.
You most definitely can. And often, it just takes them hearing from a handful of people to make a change. That's the reality. I never thought Hilton Hotels would call us. I never thought Google, that we could change the internet giant Google, that we could influence their policies. But it just took a few thousand people in that instance to speak up. That's hardly anybody compared to how many people are using their stuff, right? Another thing is, I think as we help people understand that this is a public health crisis, that it is driving demand for trafficked and prostituted women and children, as they understand the influence that this type of material is having on the development of children, they change their decisions. Right now they're being told that pornography is completely harmless and normal and everybody's using it. So they're not realizing the damage that it's causing, but that's what we need to do. We understand the damage. We know what the research is saying. We see the numbers. We have to help the public see that too.
On the Carl Jr.'s provocative ads they have, we went online and called their headquarters to tell them that we didn't want that kind of advertising. And it had an automated number that said push 1 for this, push 2 for this. And then number 1 was if you are offended with our ads, push number 1. That was the first prompt.
Did you all hear in the back? She said she was upset with Carl's Jr., so some of their ads are very, very sexually explicit. So they called and they got a message machine and it said, push 1 if you want this, push 2 if you want this. And number 1 was push 1 if you're offended by these ads. They know. The sad thing is some companies, they don't care. Carl's Jr. doesn't care. Their CEO came out and defended it. Luckily, we can go after them in other ways. At the Super Bowl, their ad was pulled. The NFL commissioner spoke out against how, they're trying to clean up they were trying to combat violence against women and stuff like that. So they pulled it. There's other ways to go after them. Cosmopolitan magazine, we've been trying to go after them for a couple years. Their editors, this is what they want. They don't care that they're offending us or the type of material they wrote an article about me last January making fun of me. They're not going to change. But instead, we're going to their retailers, right? And the retailers are listening all over the country. So there are other ways to kind of come at them. Twitter, they are not going to change their policy. They allow tons of pornography. They were on Dirty Dozen. I took them off because it was just pointless, I thought. Like, they're not going to change at all. But Facebook, I feel kind of bad that they're on our Dirty Dozen list still, because they're really the best, and they've put forth a lot of resources in there. They're trying to fix it, but because they're so large and they haven't put forth enough resources, it's still a huge problem on Facebook, and we don't want people to think that it's a really safe place to allow your kids to be, So we kept Facebook on, but Twitter will never change, and they're happy with their pro-porn policy. They defend it. But other companies will. So you got to get creative, and there's other ways around to try to help demand change. Thanks for calling, Carl's Jr.
Well, we did send it to all our Facebook friends that said, who cares, call them in. Send your email, send your text, and if they get, 500.
Yeah, that's what it takes.
But it's not just one person doing it, it's your friends doing it too, knowing that, hey, I've done the research, here's the number. Because sometimes it's just like, I don't know how to get a hold of them, what's the number? So if you do a little research, then your friends have that much easier to get.
Yeah, if you really feel a passion, you feel called to speak up about this stuff, you want your friends to do it too, you got to try to make it easy for them. We've tried to make it really easy for you. We have all the contact information for the corporate leaders, for a lot of boards of directors. You can just send an email from our website easily. But if you want to go after someone too, get that contact information and then give that to your friends and ask them. Suggest to them what to say.
I just want to say how easy it is. I love how your website, Dirty Dozen, I sat down one evening, I had letters off to everybody. I've gotten responses from our state senators up in Washington. I've gotten a personal response just last week from our state senator. So it was very easy. It doesn't take very much time, and it makes me feel like
You can take 20 actions in 5 minutes. It's really easy, and it really helps the bigger movement.
When you were talking to somebody or a company and they say porn doesn't harm, do you have a little packet of peer-reviewed journals that you like to send them?
Yes.
Do we have access to that on your site?
So actually, we are working on a really easy packet that you could just print and send. But we also have a website, pornharmsresearch.com, where we've compiled, there's about 600 peer-reviewed research articles, and they're divided by category. So the research on the brain, the research on links to trafficking, the research on children, and it's really easy. Well, I think the site needs some work, but it's all still there, and if you spend a little time, you can find them. But I'm actually compiling our office is compiling a special document now with that kind of research too for some congressmen. So we'll put that up as a resource.
And just going along with that, with the research, I haven't looked into it. Are there counter-research articles that are coming out saying that trying to debunk yours?
Yes. So he said, it asked if there's counter research that says porn is just fine. And yes, actually last week there's one that was, it was published about a month ago, but it was in the news a lot last week. It's a really faulty study out of UCLA. And the thing is that the media is this study said that it doesn't really affect men's it doesn't lead to sexual dysfunction, and that's all lies. And so pornography is not really harming it, and all these things. And the media picked up on this study, and a lot of them wrote about it, which is really unfortunate and misleading, because really what we found is this study is very flawed. We had a lot of scholars look into it, and there are 2 rebuttals that are going to be published in the next edition of the journal. But of course the news isn't going to cover those, but you can cover them, right? Because we're going to share that. We're going to post all of these rebuttals, and so you can help correct what the media is misreporting. But yes, there are some studies that come out. We often find a lot of flaws with them. That actually, the professor who published that study was fired from UCLA just afterwards for some faulty research methods. But the media does not report on that. But there's also a journal called Porn Studies that's just starting, and they're publishing how pornography is just totally fine. So yeah, it's a fight. It's a battle within the scholarly world as well. But we know the truth.
There's a recent movement on college campuses to preclude speech that makes anyone uncomfortable. Have you thought about using that as a way to fight porn on college campuses?
I don't know really what you're talking about. So he said there's a movement on college campuses to help preclude speech that makes anybody feel uncomfortable.
like they're excluding the word bullet. I mean, anything that might make anybody feel uncomfortable, it's in the news.
It's interesting. I need to look into that.
I think you could pick up on it and use it so that anybody who expressed uncomfort about, like in an English class reading a book that was pornographic could, under this new theory, and it's a debatable theory about whether we're going to eliminate free speech, but if in fact colleges are going to give credence to the theory, you could use it as a weapon, I think.
Maybe. The problem with college campuses, I could just talk about the issue of pornography in college-age students for another hour, but a lot of schools now are having they're calling a sex week. They're bringing pornographers in, they're bringing sex toy distributors in, they're teaching people how to engage in BDSM, which is very violent, kind of the theme that was 50 Shades of Grey. I mean, this is all over our country. All of the top Ivy League schools, it all started there first, and now it's spreading. Which is ironic because we're seeing an increase in sexual assault on college campuses as well, right? So, I mean, it's definitely very connected when we're telling kids that there are no boundaries and that anything goes, especially in a sexual atmosphere. Of course, then when you say no, it doesn't really mean no anymore. So we're only going to see more violence against women and sexual assault in colleges if we continue to allow pornography to overwhelm. I'll just throw out this, but there's a study that's about to be published. It should be published in the next 2 months. Marianne Layden, who spoke here last year at UCAT, I don't know if any of you were here, she did the study. She surveyed college-age men at a Northeastern university and found that 4 out of 5 of the young men said that they've already visited a prostituted woman or they plan to visit a prostitute woman. 4 out of 5. And this is a really prominent Northeastern university. What have we done? Why are the inhibitions of our young men so low that they feel like they can go buy a woman for sex? It's because most of them have been exposed to pornography now since before they were 10 years old. And women have been commodities. They are objects in their eyes. Sex is something that they're entitled to. This is a flood that we're going to see completely. We're going to see increased trafficking, increased prostitution more than ever before unless we do something about pornography too.
Are there any universities that have filtered their Wi-Fi access?
Are there any universities that have filtered their Wi-Fi access? There are a lot, yeah. But you can go ask your universities to do that. Mm-hmm.
Just wondering if you know of somebody who has pornography in their home and they have kids as well. Is there any action that you can take beyond just talking to them? I mean, I know child pornography is illegal, but if it's not necessarily that, I'm just wondering, kind of throwing that out there.
Yeah, so she's asking if there's pornography in someone's home and there are children present, can you do anything about it? That's a really sticky subject. If you know that the parents are exposing the children to pornography, then you can do something about it. If the pornography, maybe. I mean, you can go to law enforcement and ask, and you kind of have, they could do something about it, but you can go to Child Protective Services. But the fact that they just have pornography in the home doesn't necessarily mean that the child is exposed to it, although we are pretty sure that they are. Kids are really smart. They find the Playboy under the bed, which that's not even where it is anymore. It's on their dad's computer that they're doing homework on. So the likelihood that they're getting exposed to it is very high. But yeah, that's a sticky kind of thing. If you know that the kids are being exposed to it directly, you might be able to do something there.
You were talking a minute ago about the link between prostitution, trafficking, and pornography. And I've recently become aware of many businesses in the state of Utah that are selling sex in addition to whatever legitimate, usually massage parlors, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's one in my neighborhood, and I had no idea until someone taught me how to notice that that's what it was. And anyway, I've talked to the Attorney General here about what can be done.
I was going to bring this up, but I don't know how bad it is in Utah. So we actually just got a massage parlor shut down in Virginia, right by where we live. It's actually somewhat easy to do. We have a manual on our website. trying to remember exactly where it is. It's on the War on Illegal Pornography section of our website. We've got a whole new website coming, so it's a little confusing right now. But there's a whole manual for you. But usually you can go to your zoning boards. Most businesses, they have to be licensed. So you go to the licensing bureaus and commissions, and they look into it. And also go to your local police, and they'll start investigating it. The more information you're able to give, the better. But it's actually somewhat easy to get these massage parlors or brothels shut down if you're willing to speak up and do something about it. There are a lot of ways, especially if you use your zoning laws.
Also, you can use Salt Lake City Vice is really
Yeah.
proactive about it.
Well, you should first go to the police, of course, and they'll be the ones who will do the investigation, but you might have to stay on them to make sure that they're doing it. And then you also want to go to the other avenues, like the licensing bureau.
Do you have any statistics about the percentages of people who are working in these massage parlors who are trafficked versus not trafficked?
I don't know that. Yeah.
I go to UVU, and Attorney General Sean Reyes is out at UVU this last week for our Coastline project. And he said that they've been looking into a lot of this, and there is a big problem with the sex trafficking within the massage parlors in Utah, and that there were at least 40 of them that he was aware of, and his task force are aware of. They are trying to get enough information on to shut them down. So it is an issue we have. It is happening all over the place. He said they're just scattered everywhere. And they are working on it, and if you know of something, let the Attorney General's office know if you've got a concern about something too, because they're on it.
Yeah, I would think especially in Utah that you have a lot of good people in office here who are on your side and wanting to help. You just have to connect with them and speak up about it and point these things out. In Virginia, what happened was a friend of our president was going to this massage parlor because they actually did do massages for a back problem, and after he'd been there like 5 or 6 times, they offered these sex acts to him, and so he was like, what? And he told us about it, and we were able to use him as kind of a witness too, which was helpful. Again, I don't want you to put yourselves into any danger, but if this happens to you, speak up to the police. Is there anything going on around here that what are you doing in your community? What are some of the problems that you're facing here in Utah that maybe I can help give ideas for?
I feel like education is a big problem. A lot of people they don't really understand what sex trafficking is, and if they do, they think it happens in other countries. It's definitely not going to happen in Utah. And I really liked those billboards that you had a few slides back. How do people get that in their communities?
Sure. We've developed a lot of messaging. You're welcome to use anything that we've prepared. We'll make a new one for you. Or here in Utah, there's other groups who can probably help too. But we ask that you help fundraise for it because if there's a need, it's not as effective if Washington D.C. organization comes in and is trying to tell a local Utah, a small city in Utah, that they need to do something about it. But when the people in Utah see that other people in Utah, it's like talking to your peers, right? It's more effective and stronger. But we're able to help with all that. We can provide a nice website for you, lots of resources, all of those things. But so if you're interested in that city-wide blitz thing, contact us and we'll work together on it. If it's in Utah, we would probably beg to bring in some of the other groups because you have a lot of good resources here that other states don't have. But yeah, I think it's really important. I think one of the bigger things to realize is that this isn't a conference on sex trafficking and prostitution, but it's all very connected. And people think that it's only happening abroad. It's only happening in Asia or Africa or Mexico, but it's not. It's happening in the United States. We're right in this. We're 3 blocks from the White House. And if I walk 2 blocks up, I'm right in the middle of D.C. That's where our office is. And I get to the office usually at 6:30 in the morning. The prostituted women are all out walking the streets there. And it's easy to see who they are. They're right in the center of Washington, D.C. I mean, Thursday night I was just driving around Salt Lake City and I saw a woman who I'm really certain was a prostituted woman. It's happening right here. And a lot of people, they think it's only something abroad. And I would just urge you to speak up about it and to help people see that this is a problem in your community too. And it's not like these women are necessarily kidnapped and chained up and like they were kind of discussing this morning. A lot of times they're going home, these girls are going home to their parents even. Parents have no idea what's happening to them. They're being forced and coerced in all these other ways. They're leading like double lives. You would never know. And I know girls who have been trafficked who come from affluent families, who have great reputations, who are really smart, have great grades, who are involved in the community, and they still fall prey to it. And I speak about this often, so that's again like another 2-hour presentation kind of about the links between pornography and trafficking in America. But you all need to realize that this is very much a problem in your community. I have 5 more minutes, so more questions, ideas for what you can do here. Look, you have like a whole team of people to help you.
Mine's kind of a statement more than anything. My husband teaches at a high school, and so I'm just starting to get my feet wet and understanding what's going on there. But they don't enforce modesty rules at all within the school. So in a sense, you have girls walking pornography through your high schools, your junior highs, your middle schools, and the administration says we have bigger fish to fry rather than their clothes. So I just didn't know if there was anything her know about within school districts or.
So she's asking about like the clothing policies, dress policies in schools. I don't know a lot about it. I mean, I would say go to your schools and talk to them about it and help them see that this is all connected. There's like a whole bunch of groups that deal with kind of this issue in schools specifically. We're not in that. But it's not that there are bigger fish to fry, because this is leading to sexual assault. This is leading to objectification. It's hard to focus in this, right, if the girl in front of you is wearing like nothing. So, I mean, help your administrators see that it leads to more things.
Every school district has a monthly meeting, and they give time for the public to speak. If you went with as an individual or as a group, and each of you stood at the mic and spoke for 2 minutes about it, to put pressure on them or show them what other school districts are doing, their modesty policy, that this is important in every meeting, to have a group of people go and speak about the same topic.
Yeah.
And they give you time to speak at the mic for 2 minutes.
That's what we encourage. I guess that's what we do with like trying to get filters in libraries. You just go to every meeting and you don't stop until they listen to you.
Specifically, one of the things, I don't know where your husband's teaching or not, but Canyon School District has a strict policy against these types of things, especially when it's captured on a phone or a mobile device. My son just recently spent a very horrible day last week investigating preteens and teens sexting each other. And because of this exposure to pornography and these degrading types of things, the young men that were involved had no remorse for their actions.
Yeah.
They just felt, well, it's normal. I'm just acting out my normal animalistic desires, and so they didn't think that there was anything wrong with it. The result of it was there were 6 young men that were suspended, 3 young women that were suspended from a junior high school.
Junior high school. And so they were suspended for sexting, but also you need to realize that they were creating child pornography, right? It wasn't just adult, like they were creating child pornography and it's out. There's a study that just came out last month about child-produced pornography, youth-produced pornography, and how so many more children are engaging in it. But what they found was that, I still can't believe this, I need to look into it more, but the study is saying that 100% of the content that they analyzed, which I think was 3,000 images, were found on third-party websites. So those sexts, they're not just shared with one other person, they're often finding their ways out there, and then they're being traded among people. So make sure that your kids in the schools around you are aware of these problems. I'm out of time. But I just, I think that maybe now we have some new activists in the room, right? Are you all going to help and join and help clean up your community? I want to see some head shaking. Yes? Okay. I'll just close by saying thank you so much for coming and for caring enough to be here today. This is an incredible event, and learning about this issue, and you're already so much more prepared to make a difference. So thanks for coming.